Hey there guys, welcome back for the next part in this character focus series, where at the moment we're painting Abaddon. So we've got the black and the red, the two different reds, up to about 90-95% done now. They just need a few glazes and washes and such. But next I'm going to move on to the gold, which will be the focus of this video. So obviously almost all of the trim on the armour, as far as I can tell from reference photos, is gold. So for example, that's all the trim around this area here, the beads or whatever you want to call them, these little notches things on the his armour plates, obviously down the other leg as well, and on the back along the trim on this side, the eyes. And I have just noticed that I'd missed that eye from last video, so I'll get on with that today as well. Obviously we've got the gold around here and the eye on his shoulder plate, and then all the little studs and rivets and things like that. So first thing first, going to knock some my paints over the edge. Going to use some Retributor armour as a base coat for this. Now I was in two minds whether or not to do non-metallic or true metallic metals for this, but to be honest with you, I prefer non-metallic metals over true metallic metals. Now there's a nice shine picking up in the camera down here. It's not as prominent as that. There we go, we move the shine, you can see it shows up because the light source. On this side however, we do have the harsh whites showing that nice reflective gleam off the top of the armour there. Obviously, as with camera as usual, is showing the steps, but to the human eye that can't be seen, at least to my failing eyes, that can't be seen. So bit of Retributor armour and just go around catching all the trim. Now the way that I do my armour is Retributor armour as a base coat, and then shade over that with Reikland Flesh Shade Gloss, and this will retain that sheen. Obviously I don't want a matte look to it, although I will be using matte varnish for this, but with the true metallic metal it will still look metallic, just without that heavy shine. So after the metallic wash has gone on, I'll then go back in with Retributor armour and just brighten a few areas up, and then at the same time I will go in with trying to think if we can get it, Balthazar Gold, that is the one, and add some darker areas in, and essentially work between the Retributor armour gold and the Balthazar Gold to get some blends, some you know, between dark areas and lighter areas. And then I'll use a mix of Mithril Silver or Stormhost Silver, I think it is now, with the Retributor armour to get a slightly paler, more silver gold, and that will be used obviously for sort of the lighter areas where that light is really going to reflect off them. Now obviously I'm being careful as I can not to go onto any of the areas that are black, but this is why the armour, the black areas, is only done to about 90%, so that any mistakes can be touched back up in essentially what I call my touch-up stage and finish stages. Obviously where I go back over the entire model with all these various colours, and just touch up areas that need doing. Now I'm not entirely sure if the back of the leg armour on these trims is gold. There's nothing in the reference photos, so I'm taking a bit of creative license with it and assuming that it would be. And the same obviously with the undersides. So let's see if we can get that on camera there. I think this part of the handle is going to be in the way. I will later remove it from here anyway and go under and make sure that I get everything. And obviously this has got, or will be having, a lot of sort of dirt and damage and things like that added over this, and that's when the model will really come to life. But if we can get it looking that way before that stage, then obviously we're off to a great start. Alright, so here obviously we've got this trim, but it does have this dark area behind it and then another gold area, so the bottom of the knee pad is gold. So very carefully going in with a number 1 brush here, and there we go. And then obviously when we black line that, that's going to neaten that up a little bit. So I think we'll stay on the left side of him for now, or his right side. Get all that done and then come back across to the other side. And as I said before, I am going to miss bits. You know, I am by no means the world's best painter. I don't paint for competitions. I'm not a competition winner or anything like that. I just do what I do because I enjoy it, and those few commissions I do have people hire me for, obviously they do because they like the look of my work, and I do I do the best that I can on them, and I charge what I think is a fair price for the quality that I do. Now looking at this, doesn't look, the trim has a brown, of his boots has a brown look to them, but I'm not sure if that's the dirt. So what I'm going to do is paint them in gold. They're going to be covered in dirt anyway, but if I can paint these trim in this gold, and then once the brown dirt and stuff goes over, I'll know that it will cover it and won't matter too much whether it's gold or not. But again, due to lack of photos for this particular model, without stealing the ideas that other people have done, official photos and stuff, obviously there's just the ones on the Forge World site, which is primarily what I'm working from. And I'm going to have trouble getting under there, so I will leave that, and as long as I remember, I will come back to it later. Alright, so now we'll do the, let's just call them studs, on his thigh greaves. Now as these are spherical, for the most part they are all going to be light, but the ones along this back edge are going to be darker, and obviously I'll represent that with the darker Balthazar gold. And I am essentially with this getting a nice blob of paint on the see if we can get it to focus. Nice blob of paint on the end of the bristles there, and just allowing that to literally blob on to the stud here. Oh, there goes his arm. So there we go, we've got the studs in there, the gold, and you can see now that those grey areas that I did with the black are starting to stand out even more now that I have the gold on there. And this is why I didn't want to go too bright with it, but we can always neaten it up later. Right, so he has gold studs on each of these tassels, I suppose you'd call them. Ooh, bit too much of a blob there. Not easy doing this from behind a camera. Can't get nearly as close as I like. Normally I'd have this right up in my face, glaring down at it. I think for the details on the belt here I'm going to go for a smaller brush. We'll pick up the studs on the inside of his gauntlet here. There's a third one just under there. There we go, just got it. Now the risk to using a large blob of paint on things like this is obviously that you can blob that on too much and hit the area that you don't want. But I find if you do it with too little paint on the brush or too thin, that it doesn't take properly. So dotting it or blobbing it on is my preferred method with this. I just need to be a little bit more careful with how I am doing it. Alright, so these look like they are little circles. So we'll pick that off. Ah, they are little eyes with a joint section coming across. So very carefully just brushing along the top, letting the paint pull off the bristles onto the shape. Not too sure what's happened with that one there, it seems to be missing. Not sure if I removed that accidentally during clean up or not. I don't think I did. May just be that it didn't come out in the moulding process. So another stud here and there. Alright, now we've got gold trim along here. And for this I'm going to leave the inside, this face, black on that. Right, and as I mentioned last time, this centerpiece, I can't quite see in the reference to what colour it is, but I do know that these spikes are gold. and so I've decided to do this gold and see how it looks. Okay, so one tip when doing edges like this, obviously we've got an edge here. What I like to do is paint as though I'm painting the corner, but over paint slightly, and you'll get right down the side without actually going onto the flat area. So let's see if I can get it this way. Just along here, and there we go, slightly onto the flat area there that time, but we can neaten that up with some panel lining and stuff later on. Okay, now moving on to the 8-pointed star around the eye. It's quite interesting as to who makes the armour for these guys, or who made the armour when they turned. Obviously a lot of the vehicles and weaponry were made by the Adeptus Mechanicus. I'm assuming that was the same for the Horus Heresy. I know in the first few books that I have listened to already have mentioned them, and that Horus did get some of them to turn traitor with him. But what I would like to know is, this gauntlet is obviously an 8-pointed star. I'm assuming that's what it's supposed to be. So did Abaddon just turn around and say, right, you guys from the Adeptus Mechanicus, I want a new Power Fist or Lightning Claws, whatever this one's supposed to be, and I want this 8-pointed star to show my allegiance to Chaos. Make it for me, because if that's the case, then they made that pretty damn fast. I mean, why he couldn't just fight with his own old armour, I don't know. Right, now there is a stud just there. Barely stands out, but it's there. Then we got another one just on the corner here. There he is. And then another here. A bit on that red there. And same there. Right. Now for this, nice and easy, I'm just going to use the brush to go lightly over and just pick off the details with a few passes. Once we've got that Loken flesh shade in there anyway, that will darken it up. And there you go, balls that up. So back in with some red and neaten that up at the end. Right, so moving on to the studs on this section. Same as the front ones, we have a stud per tassel. There we go. Now there is also a stud here and gold trim from the back of the claw. Now the gauntlet itself obviously has gold on it, but it's also silver, so I want to get the silver in there first, so we'll come back to that once we've done the silver in there. Now he has this section here, looks silver, but it's got these gold detailing off the side. And obviously the spikes on the top. So that's one side of them. I tend to paint them as though they're a four-sided object. So there's two sides. Then we've got this side. And then this side. And because they are painted like a four-sided object, and then brushing slightly round to the next side, we can see, if I don't knock the camera, you can see that fills in all sides. Just got to get the bottom of that middle one there. And then the bottom of this first one. What I'm doing is using the camera, because the camera shows up a lot more details than your eye can see. There we go. I can use that to see what I've missed. Right, so now we've got these vents around here, and also those circular bits just in there, we'll come to in a bit. Now you'll actually see, if I get it on camera, if I can get the angle, you can see that if I go past with the brush and pull back, it's not actually depositing paint, which means there's a lip here that I can't see. So I've got under there, I've just got to be careful not to paint up, at least not in this colour. Right, in there we'll do that silver and then grime it up a bit. Let's get these two brassy gold pieces done. Got a little bit of gold on there. Now, even if this was, like I say, this is what I would do to my commission standard for characters. So even with these mistakes, you know, all artists make them. Just because I do commissions doesn't mean they're going to be perfect, but they're not going to stay like that. I am going to obviously make sure that those mistakes are cleaned up. So once again, 4 sides of each spike. And then use the camera to check that it goes down to the bottom and looks fine. Yep. Right, we've got a couple more studs on this pauldron here. And then one more on the back there, and too fast, too hard. So we ended up touching the area I didn't want to. Right, studs around there I will do with a finer brush. At this stage of it all, I'm just looking to get this main gold on. Right, spinning round to the front, and he's got this gold trim that comes right up over his hood. Well, I say over his hood, this is his hood. Obviously Abaddon's in Terminator armour, so this is the hood of that. Now obviously what I'm trying not to do and being wary of is that paint doesn't pool up around these studs. If you brush thick paint up against them, it tends to catch and then it can obscure the detail. Okay, and now I'll follow that round. Do I want to follow it along the top? I don't think I do. I think I'm going to, there we go, pick off that detail but leave that bit in there black, and obviously this area here, because it's showing the original resin. Obviously when the arm was on there and I sprayed it, I will paint this area black just in case anything is shown under the arm area. The arm that's on there at the minute, or should be on there at the minute, is the one that I'm going to be focusing on. That's the one that I would have on there as a display piece. But if I decide to sell this, obviously whoever buys it will have the option of interchangeable arm, depending on whether they want to display it or if they want to use it in their games of 30k. Although I suppose you could use them in 40k as well. Abaddon is still in there, so no reason we couldn't. Okay, so I'm now switching over to a size 0 brush, and I've got all the studs covered. I'm just now going to get in these little detailed areas here. Not sure what they are exactly. I'm assuming just clips and straps and stuff on his belt. Looks like there's a stud there, so we'll get that one on. There's a stud there, and then we've got all these studs down the back. Now, even on a wet palette, I find metallic paint tends to dry out and thicken up a lot quicker than regular paint. I'm assuming this is to do with the metal flake that is in the paint. So it is something to be careful, to be wary of when you're painting. Obviously, thicker paint is going to be a bit more of a problem to apply. It will gunk your brush up more. So I am adding a small amount of water to this each time, not diluting the paint. Obviously we don't want it thinning, but just enough to help it leave the bristles. Now, I'd say so far this is probably the most tedious part of this whole process, is picking off these rivets and studs and that. Obviously, A, making sure that you get them all, and B, making sure that it is only them that you get. So far so good. Well, we've got one stud here. Now, is it on this side? No, it can't be seen. Right, I've got a stud here though, and we got that one there. We got the highlights and stuff on that. So there's a stud there. That one seems to be missing everything. Right, now looking at this reference, this is gold, as is this, and so is the area that goes around the eye. However, this top area isn't gold, which kind of throws me off. I see it. There is a plate there. So we've got that, and in there, and then these studs here, and then obviously the same coming round the other side. And this is why I went to the smaller brush. So we've got this bit comes along, and that bit, that seems I may have made a boo-boo. That bit in there should be black, so not a problem. Go back in and touch that up once I'm done. Right, so went down to the floor, rescued the arm. So now we can get all this painted up. Sorry guys, still got to get used to painting and posing at this angle rather than arms all the way up, which is more comfortable but not a great filming angle. Because obviously to film that I'd have to bring the camera up in front of my face and then I wouldn't see anything. So occasionally we are going to get a little bit of camera slippage. Right, now there is a stud there and then this lovely trim. And you can see already this is starting to show up a lot more detail than before this gold was applied. Alright, so we've got a stud there, a stud there, and then I'm going to leave that, I think that's folded over so the stud is actually on the inside. Now we've got the eye and this bracket on top. And a lightning bolt. And I think I did it again. Obviously I can't tell until I check the camera back later. And then again a lightning bolt here. Right, now for the eye around his chest here. Right, and this piece here, gold along that, and then up in here, and then the bits off the side of it are in silver. And when I say silver I mean obviously a metallic, your typical gunmetal type shade. Right, the gun I'm going to leave the gold off. I'll probably end up doing that in a little bit more of a darker gold once I've done the silver parts. But we do have this trim on the gauntlet as well as the eye. Elbow on the chair there. That was not me, guys, honest. Alright, and then one stud right in there, look. Well, two studs, we've got one on the edge there. So first of all, very gently, we go and get the paint on the black. Let's see if we can do better with this one. Yes, we do. There we go. So now we've got the studs just in here. Studs or rivets, whatever you want to call them. That one in there, can't see enough to warrant trying to get paint to it. It may not be there, but there is one on that plate there, look. There we go. Alright, so what I will do now is very quickly go through with you guys so you can see us well, and the camera, just make sure I haven't missed anything. So stud wise, looks like I've got one under here to do. So obviously if you guys can see, just under here to do. And on the back I've got them exhaust ports done. The rest is silver. Right, so that's that. Looks like I've got everything. Like I say, black will go up and touch up when we work on the final details on the armour. So right now, it's time to go in with some Whiteland Flesh Shade Gloss, and if that pot will stay up, see if we can get that on the palette cam there. Right, I'll use the size 0 brush. It isn't going to make too much of a difference, and all I'm going to do is just wash it in to darken up that gold, but I especially want it to pool a little bit more in certain areas, such as inside the leg here where it is going to be darker. Obviously on that part we just want it to stain, but I do want a little bit of shading there, which is what I will add with the Balthazar gold. All we're looking to do with this one is just tint down this gold slightly. Now the reason I use the flesh shade is it's got that reddish tone to it, which when it gets into recesses and stuff really makes that gold pop out. Now for the most part the studs I'm not too worried about catching with this. They're so small that they would pretty much just have highlights. They're not small enough really to have a dark tone along them. Yep. Catch the camera there. Obviously making sure I get a good amount of that in there. Wick some of it away, though we don't want that much. See, now the idea with some of these more flat surfaces is that this will sit in a little sort of dip, leaving a natural highlight either side of it. I don't know if the camera can pick that up with the light on it, but you can see, I can get my brush in there, right along this bottom edge here and this top edge here. The wash doesn't adhere to it because it's too much on the edge, so it pulls in the middle, darkening up the middle, but giving us this natural edge highlighting in places that we can then accentuate later with additional painting. But it gives us a good basis to work with. As highlighting, edge highlighting something like that is really tricky anyway, so if we can have some of the job done for us with the wash settling into sort of the middle run of a straight area. Now this larger area will be a perfect example for it. So we've got, you can see, get that to focus, that dark band in the middle is where I've applied it, but it's left these edges in the highlight gold. Okay, darken all of that up. Now I want this going darker from the bottom, so this is obviously where I want it to concentrate a little bit. And then the same on this side, a little bit more towards the top and bottom. Right, now here obviously we want it to cause shadow under this lip as the light is coming from this top angle, and then the same on the inside of here. We can have this dark with the heavier wash and straight down the middle. And we'll do catch them. And them coupled there. Alright, now what I'll do is let that dry for about 10 minutes and then come back in and glaze down some more. So what I'll be doing is coming down this edge with that Loken flesh shade and just darkening here so that the top will stay light. I'm going to use this flesh shade to get that darker tone. Okay, so sorry guys, I got a bit distracted there. Right, what I'm doing is taking some of the Balthazar gold and just working out where I want my darker shadow areas to be. So obviously we've got this highlight that runs down this edge, so we're going to have a highlight in the gold here and here, which means I want this bit to be darker here, so then we can get some highlight here. Obviously most of this is on a downward angle, so it's going to be darker at the bottom, a little bit lighter at the top, but still within some shadow. And then the same here, we've got this highlight that comes down here from the main light coming this way. So we are looking for a brighter spot down here, getting darker as we come towards the edges, and then slightly lighter here. But again, this is in shadow, so it will just be some edge highlighting. Now what I'm doing with this is working on one area at a time. So for example, the leg here, including the small trim at the top. Then I'll work on the shoulder pauldron, the middle area here, then obviously with this here, then the other pauldron, and then down to this leg, and then I'll go back and, you know, touch up any details. So with that first bit of Balthazar gold down, you can see that it's quite dulled the Retributor armour up, obviously with the Reikland flesh shade there as well. So all I'm going to do now is go back in and just highlight that lightest area, plus a little bit either side of it, as obviously we're going to have a brighter colour in the middle there. And then all I'm going to do is try and very carefully edge highlight all of the gold, even the darker areas, with this Retributor armour. The reason being, obviously, even those dark areas, they're gold, so they're still going to reflect quite a bit of light, and obviously we want that showing. Now what I did here, obviously I darkened this side slightly as the light is coming from this angle, and then this is going to be a little bit lighter. Now I apologise again if I go off camera here, painting areas like this. Obviously, habit wise, I'll pull it right up to my face, which means I may end up pulling it off camera without straight away realising. Now I want a little bit of highlight on that centre area, so we've got light, dark, and then a little bit of light on the edges. And then the same with this. I'm just going to carefully pick off these edges, and then these rivets again, but letting this stay darker towards the bottom area there. As I said earlier, metallic paints, even on a wet palette, don't tend to stay too long. The most I can usually get out of them is probably about half an hour to 40 minutes. So hopefully I can get a good portion of this done with that before it thickens up to become unusable. So again, just edge highlighting down here and picking off studs. So studs I would always pick off with pure, because of the shape of them. In my mind, they will almost always reflect light, unless obviously there's almost absolute zero light. Right, so just carefully now trying to edge highlight that bottom edge of the darker gold, Right, then back in with a slight mix. I'm not cleaning my brush here, just picking up some of that Balthazar gold, and again just very carefully going in and darkening a few areas up. So very carefully trying to pick into the middle of the trim, so I do leave some of that highlight on there. Right, catch the camera. Right, same thing here. Obviously we're going to get a little bit darker within this leg because it is quite close to the torso. However, it is still going to show some highlight, and then again we're going to get a little bit darker just down here. So I'll clean my brush off for this. Obviously just applied the Balthazar gold, so now we want clean for the Retributor armour again. Now what I'm going to do is a small amount here, then we've got the darker bit and then the lighter bit, and then in there just going to very carefully fade that. Right, next up, to highlight all these areas, I'm going to take some Stormhost silver and a little bit of Balthazar Retributor armour, and I'm looking for a silver with that slight gold tint to it, and then we can thin that down slightly. Right, so obviously I'm going to use this where those white highlights would be on the armour, and this is going to be the almost brightest area. Use it to edge highlight a few pieces. Then we've got this coming down here, but because it's slightly raised, it's going to catch it slightly sooner. So we can just put the highlight in slightly off from it. And then we've got a stud here and here, and then we've got this slight lighter area here that we can edge highlight. Okay, so for the final highlight on this, I'll be going in with some pure what is it? Stormhost silver, that's the one. And this is going to be my highlight for any of those extreme gold areas. Where the light is going to catch the most, and I want almost a white look to it. Gold does tend to do that. You can get very harsh light on it. Obviously it does depend on the light source. But what I'm going to do is carefully edge highlight. It may not show up on camera. It barely shows up on, you know, in to the eye anyway, but it is noticeable sort of with and without it. And you can see here I've got just a bit of gold on the black there, Obviously that will be neatened up in the touch up phase, so I'm not too worried about it, but it does give a stepped look. Obviously I'm exaggerating it here, it is giving a bit of a stepped look to that gold. Right, so just a little bit of silver right at the peak here, and then another one here and here. And what I will do now is I'm just going to highlight the tops of these rivets just on this top edge. Just for that spot of reflection on them, and then on the other side obviously I'll go round and add some Balthazar gold, but that there, hopefully that's showing, seems to be, is the gold done for that leg. So just want to add a little bit of a top highlight along here. Oh, catch the camera. And along here, because this is a slightly lighter area, it is going to catch some highlight. There we go, so now we can move on to this part up the top here. So first of all, we'll take our Balthazar gold and think about where we're going to have this now. The light is coming pretty much at this angle, so the top area here, obviously we've got the light here, is going to be the strongest, and then it's going to get weaker as it comes down. But what I like to have is that second highlight just along the edge there, and then we go into the dark. So dark here, and what that will do is that will be a single contrast, that won't go slightly lighter, that will just be a light. And then here is where it will transition to the light, and then it will transition back to the dark on this corner here, and then the same this way, we'll get that light bit that will transition across. Now for the eye in the centre, it's going to be pretty much the same thing. We're going to be looking at dark down here, and that will obviously transition in, and then just a little bit of dark on this edge here. Now because this snake is above it, to make it stand out more, I will leave that with the brighter gold and add some highlights on that, get rid of the arm again. So next up will be the Retributor armour again. And now this is going to be essentially here, right down to there. Then we've got our bit of highlight there, and then we'll come up to about here, small bit of highlight across the middle, and then the snake, and then along here we're just going to go around this edge here, and then fade that off, and then try and edge highlight this star area just here that goes into that darker gold. While we're doing that, no, we'll leave it. We'll just do the area around here on his gauntlet as part of this stage. So, because now we're coming this way, but we have still got the circle, the light will come along this edge here, and then it will be darker on this edge. So essentially, I'm now trying to put a shadow on the bottom edge here, just under here, and then the outside edge just here on the bottom of that lightning bolt, and then the back curve of the eye there as it dips down into that area, and then under here this lightning bolt is going to be relatively dark as it starts to go under the hand again. And then with the Retributor armour, we can just pick off this top edge again. Bear in mind this has had the Balthazar gold over it, so then we're just trying to edge highlight the smallest of details here. And then moving to the Retributor silver mix. We'll call this a silver gold for future reference. We can pick off that edge, the edge there, and the outside edge of the lightning bolt, and then a little bit there. We can also grab the middle portion of the eye, and then a small edge highlight just on this edge here. So let's see if we can see that in. Not the easiest to see, but it's there. Right, so back to the top here. We've got the gold silver is going to be pretty much that middle area, and a little bit either side. Edge highlight that, and then catch the bottom of it like so. The back half is going to be slightly darker, and then we can pick off the highlights on the snake here just as it starts to dip down back in. So as it comes up and over the raised areas, obviously we'll catch those raised areas, and then we'll just small bit of that silver there, or silver gold. Pick off the stud, and then just grabbing the edge. And the same here, back over, and then just pick off the edge slightly here, and a couple of these studs. And then we can finish that with some pure Stormhost silver just in that small section there, and then the same here just on the raised bits, and then on the outer edge there. So you've still got a bit of gold just in the middle of it where it's going to have a bit of shadow from that lip that's there. Right, so taking a look at that, we've now got what looks like that real nice shine across the top there. If I put that in shadow, you can still see it looks like a shine there. Obviously a little bit more dull, but as we come round, you've got that shine, and then those differences in the gold coming round and then getting dark as we come down. That small bit of highlight just across there and then dark again. So that is that half of him finished. Next we'll move on to the hood and the back here, and while we're doing them we'll just do these two bits and this bit under here as well, and then we can move on to the other arm when we find it, and then the leg. Okay, so moving on to the hood. Obviously we've used that shade to bring us a darker tone down the bottom. I'm now just going to sort of accentuate that with the Balthazar gold. Now this side, because the light is coming from this side, it's going to be very hard in shadow. So this side is going to be quite dark. And then this side will actually be a bit lighter because the light can catch it a bit easier. So obviously all I'm doing at the moment is the Balthazar gold step. And then for along here, now we've got this band that comes across here. This is what's causing the light along here. So this is going to be a nice bright silver gold, and then it's going to go pretty much gold on the edge, and then coming this way we're going to get a bit darker. So I'd say from about here down we want this a little bit darker. So just pulling this down around these pips, and hopefully the camera will pick that up. There we go. Just getting that depth on there. And then for these, now because they're cylindrical, I'm going to place a highlight right along this edge here, pretty much as thick as the brushes, but the underside is going to be relatively dark. So I'm just going to darken it up naturally with the Balthazar gold. Nothing overly complicated for down that side. And then obviously I've gone and missed the trim down here on the back. So same thing, that's going to be pretty much dark along this edge with that highlight. I don't need to do too much with it. We've got that natural highlight of the Retributor armour along that edge. And then knock the camera again, got the lens right in the way there. Just going to darken up this area in here quite a bit, as obviously it's going to be for the most part hidden from the light. And that'll take a couple of layers, but it's all about building it up. And the same here, might as well do it while we're here. Going to be quite dark, especially along the edge that touches that armour. And then lightest here, and getting just a bit of depth down at the bottom there. Alright, so back to obviously this area. Now I'm not happy with the way that you can see that these have got that blob of gloss on there. So all I'm going to do is with the Balthazar gold just pick over them slightly. I think there might just be a bit too much gloss gel medium or something in the pot, so I think future reference I'll thin it down a little bit with some Lamian medium or something. Right, so just paint along the bottom there, leave that top edge, same with this one. And then here, obviously we've got a highlight is going to be here, so I'm just going to darken pretty much there but leave that gap. And then the same with the other one, so there, leave that gap and come down this way. And then that will have that highlight along the top there. Right, on the top here, obviously it's dried a bit, still quite light, so I'm just going to go back in and darken it up a bit more. And then the same with the bottom of these spikes. Just going to get close to the bottom. On this side we'll go all the way up. Right, and then these studs here, as I said earlier, I will go in this Balthazar gold and just pick the underside of them. Pretty much just to where it touches the black. And then the top side will be left. And then we can put a highlight right on the tip where that light is showing anyway, along there. And then we'll do the same for the ones up here. So again, because the light's coming from here, we're going to go just along this bottom outside edge on all of them. And then we can touch back in on that top edge with some Balthazar gold silver mix. And there we go. And then grab some Balthazar gold, and for this top portion now, just going to edge highlight all along this edge. Like so. Around these rivets, but not getting close to them. You want a little bit of shadow around them. And then obviously this back edge as well, just along here. And then the silver gold. Portion up the top half. There is a bit of battle damage there, so I'm just going to be careful. Go around that, and the battle damage I'll go in and really pick out towards the end. Right, so we've got this lighter area along here. There you go, it's even made that battle damage stand out in itself anyway. Right, so for these upright spikes, all I'm going to do is take some silver and just run a line straight up this side of each one. That's enough to just represent that light shining off, and then we can do the same with the vent on the back here. Like so. And then grabbing some of that silver gold, I'm just going to edge highlight this piece under here. Like so. Right, so that's that done. Before we get the arm on, we'll just go down and finish the leg down here. Why not? So we've got this shine here. This is going to be a lighter edge here, and we're going to be darker in there. So what we want to do is get this corner dark and get this curved area dark, and then down the centre of this. And then the same within here. Now, because this has got the strong light here and a reflective light, it's very much under shadow, so we're not going to get a huge amount of reflection under there, but we will get some edge highlights. Okay, so now moving on to the weapon arm here. I'm going to carry on with this Balthazar gold, and I'm just going to go in and start darkening up some of this bottom edge. Obviously with the light coming from this angle, it's not going to catch quite as much. And just make sure that we've got under there as well. This lightning bolt, we can get, sort of, if we place it just right, we can get the centre area just down the edge. Now there's obviously this bright area that's going to come along here, so what we're going to do is come just away from it on the corner, and then just a little bit here just to break it up. And on this inside area, now obviously it's going to be bright here, I want it a little bit dark just as we get into that edge. And then the same down here, and then just on this edge, like so, barely putting any paint on there, just enough to add a little bit of darkness to it. Right, and then moving down to the gold on the arm here, same thing. We're pretty much just darkening this under area. Now, this is such fine detailed areas on here, it's difficult to get any real shading as such with the gold. Obviously larger areas like this is okay, but I think that's about it for the gold. So what we'll do next will be the silvers, obviously on the gun here and on the claw, as well as things like the pipes that he's got here. I know I did them with some grey highlight. I've decided to go with silver on them. Maybe these cables here will introduce maybe some red or something, silver along this pack here, and then we'll be coming towards the end of finishing him. All that will be left is for the face detailing. So I will catch you guys in the next episode. Thanks a lot for joining me. Take it easy. Keep painting those minis.